Burning down shit ain't gonna help nothing. No burning down shit we need in our community. Take that shit to the suburbs. Burn that shit down. We need our shit. We need our weed.
Racist ideology known as the alt-right. Now, alt-right is short for alternative right.
Okay, wir können aktuell bestätigen, dass der Täter von Einsatzkräften auf der Flucht erschossen worden ist. Bei den Verletzten bleibt es aktuell. Wir haben 3 Schwerverletzte, einen Leichtverletzten, haben 14 weitere Personen, die mit im Zug waren, die nach aktuellem Stand unter Schock stehen. Somit werden sie auch als verletzt gezählt. Und wir können bestätigen, dass der Täter mit dem Messer und mit einer Axt bewaffnet war.
Kann man was zu den Hintergründen sagen?
Zu den Hintergründen können wir leider aktuell noch gar nichts sagen. Das ist Stand der Ermittlungen. Die Kollegen sind schon vor Ort und ermitteln aktuell.
Kann man was zur Nationalität des Täters sagen?
Haben wir auch noch keine bestätigt.
For a lot of it, Matt's doing this.
Yeah, I had to look.
I'm looking down. Ben, you were like in the fetal position at some point.
Yeah, I was bored, but I was mostly bored.
It's very numbing and very repetitive.
Now, do any of y'all play video games? Because I don't either. But
Matt actually does.
I do, and I have found that as I've gotten older and as the frame rates have increased, it's harder to spend a lot of time playing certain games.
It gives you a headache.
It makes it, depending on the perspective, it gives me a little bit of motion sickness. So some games I have to stop after 30, 40 minutes. Like, whereas it wasn't always that way.
Is there like a flashing mound of gold coins or anything?
Almost.
Spoiler, you never find out who he is or how he ended up in that situation. The guy who, the albino with the telekinetic powers, you never find out really who he is or what he wants. I mean, I guess it does that. Maybe it doesn't matter. Maybe it's the MacGuffin. Maybe it's just, a matter of the mayhem. Also, I'm going to do a thing that you guys think is a cliche that I do all the time. Can we talk about misogyny?
Yeah, sure.
Let's talk about misogyny.
Washy, clean, scrub, scrub. So we washy, clean, scrub, scrub. We washy, clean, scrub, scrub. It's fun to wash your hands, and I know you'll understand. We washy, clean, scrub, 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 scrub.
I talk about the fact that I'm a feminist as often as I can, and every time I do, it gets huge reaction, and media reacts, and the Twitterverse explodes, and things like that, because here I am saying I'm a feminist. I will keep saying that until there is no more reaction to that when I say it, because that's where we want to get to. It's just, if you're a progressive, you really should be a feminist.
This is what's going to happen. Terrorists are going to burn down his house. Yeah. Huh? His children are going to be kidnapped. His wife, she's going to be raped by a motorcycle gang. That's the plan I want implemented, damn it.
Good evening, y'all. I just want to make a YouTube video to say, are there any transsexual men out there who want to fart on me? I'm also interested in transsexual men. I am going to make more plays, and I am going to make more YouTube videos sometime a little later if you give me a moment. But I just want to know if any transsexual men out there that have interest in farting on me and curious of farting on my face, let me know. I am the fart receiver. I'm not a fart giver. I'm the one that like to receive farts because, like I said, I have a chronic fart fetish. I would like to work around the clock smelling guys' farts. I even like to go around volunteering to smell guys' farts, whether I do it on camera or off camera. But are there any transsexual men out there who's interested in farting in my face? Let me know.
Would you rather your child had feminism or cancer?
I'm Hillary Clinton, and I approve this message.
But was he one of your sources then? I mean.
Okay, so what are your numbers, guys?
I give 3.3, but I thought about giving it a 6.6.
I'm saying 4.
Yeah, I give it a 6. And as far as video game stories go, Super Mario Brothers, it's okay. Look, I know people who are going to love this, and
they're a lot younger than we.
And
Dave White, under 25, right?
and Dave White was laughing the whole time.
True, but he was also looking at fixed points on the horizon periodically.
I think there's a lot of that. Like, I wonder what this would feel like watching it on a smaller screen.
On an iPad.
Right? Like, if watching it on an iPad, I wonder if I would be
better.
But it's a video game story, and at least for me, like, I'm like, yeah, okay, it's a video game story. I'm not expecting anything out of this.
I think they hear what we're saying. Video games are stupid.
Right. I want the
So I give it a 6.
Where is the Pac-Man first-person game with GoPros? I'm waiting for.
Okay, wir können aktuell bestätigen, dass der Täter von Einsatzkräften auf der Flucht erschossen worden ist. Bei den Verletzten bleibt es aktuell. Wir haben 3 Schwerverletzte, einen Leichtverletzten. Haben 14 weitere Personen, die mit im Zug waren, die nach aktuellem Stand unter Schock stehen. Somit werden sie auch als verletzt gezählt. Und wir können bestätigen, dass der Täter mit dem Messer und mit einer Axt bewaffnet war.
Kann man was zu den Hintergründen sagen?
Zu den Hintergründen können wir leider aktuell noch gar nichts sagen. Das ist jetzt Stand der Ermittlungen. Die Kollegen sind schon vor Ort und ermitteln aktuell.
Kann man was zur Nationalität des Täters sagen?
Haben wir auch noch keine Bestätigung.
Listen up, all you dino scallywags! I'm in a real bad mood, and I'm gonna tell you why. When things don't go my way, I get angry. So angry. When dino zombies make me run, I get angry. So angry. I'm angry. I'm grumpy. I'm bad. I'm angry. I'm grumpy. I'm bad. When things don't go my way, I get angry. So angry. Nobody listens to what I say. I get angry. So angry. I'm angry. I'm grumpy. I'm bad. I'm angry. I'm grumpy. I'm bad.
Jim's idea of purity is I never block anybody, no matter how.
But yeah, because I'm not a pussy, Dean. Right? I don't block people because I'm not a pussy. I didn't say it was ideologically. I didn't say it was ideologically pure. I'm saying you're a pussy.
Oh, okay. I'm a pussy. Well, say it to my face sometime.
Oh wait, Dean. Do you want to meet in real life? Are you gonna fight me now? Is this the internet tough guy routine? Like, oh, you wouldn't dare say that to my face.
Yours is the internet.
No. Back it up, Sunshine.
It means that from Thursday, anyone caught selling, making or importing will face up to 4 years in prison. The move follows the death of a teenager in London last year. Alex Bushell has the story.
From the hunter apocalypse to zombie slayer, the names are over the top and faintly ridiculous. But the blades are no less fatal. Last March, 18-year-old Stephen Appleton was killed with this weapon in a park in Islington. Until now, their sale, mostly over the internet and imported from the US, has been legal. Well, no more.
We're banning the manufacture of them here, the importation of them, the retail of them, and the possession of them. So we're doing everything we possibly can to ensure that people can't buy them.
First of all, I'm going to keep saying loud and clearly that I am a feminist. Why does every time I say I'm a feminist, the Twitterverse explodes and news medias pick it up? It shouldn't be something that creates a reaction.
En som brenner Koranen, ifølge islam, da straffen døden. Det riktig?
حرق القرآن للإهانة نعم بالتأكيد.
Du satt i fengsel for å ha truet noen kurdere, og også statsministeren. Nå sier en av kurderne at du har truet ham igjen. Det riktig?
لا ليس صحيح. أمامه طريق المحاكم يستطيع أن يثبت ذلك.
Men denne mannen som da har brent Koranen, vil det være riktig at han mister sitt liv, selv om han bor i Norge?
أعتقد جازما أنه ارتكب جريمة وعقوبته القتل وتنفيذه على أمتنا سواء كان في النرويج أو عند باراك أوباما لا يفرق هذا فأنا لا أهدد شخصا بعينه أنا أذكر النظرية أذكر القانون فأنا قلت ما في القرآن وما في الحديث فأنا ما قلت على الشخص يجب أن نقتلك أنت.
Betyr ikke det at du med din religiøse utredning faktisk dømmer ham til døden, selv om du ikke vil gjøre det selv, så kan noen andre gjøre det?
ليس فقط يستمع إلي كل من يعرف العقوبة ممكن أن يقتله كل من يعرف العقوبة نحن ندافع عن ديننا بدمائنا وحدودنا حدود الدم حدود متفجرات الذي يهين ديننا يجب أن يعرف أن واحدا منا سيموت هذا أو غيره الذي يفعل إهانة لديننا وكرامتنا يجب أن يفهم أن هذا صراع حياة أو موت.
Black power in this motherfucker, man. Ooh! No, they ain't taser.
Cuckstead.
You are surrounded by your privilege. Because you're a fucking white man.
Cuckstead.
Ew! Take your privilege somewhere else, please. Ew! Because your privilege is not welcome here. You are surrounded by your privilege. Because you're a fucking white.
Maximum privilege reached.
Ew! Take your privilege somewhere else, please. Ew! Because your privilege is not welcome here.
Okay, well, welcome to the Blackocast, my fellow Kangs. Hopefully you're going to enjoy the enrichment that we're going to be having going on tonight. I just want to check to make sure the audio levels are coming through okay, and then we'll get into it. So give me 1 second to do that. And then here comes diversity. For those that don't know, tonight we're going to be discussing Black Lives Matter, the movement of peace. Of course, obviously it's a movement of peace. We all know how law-abiding they are. So it should be an interesting discussion. I have somebody coming on, Warzy, who's going to be taking the pro-BLM position because I put out a challenge and he was the one to accept it. So we'll see how that goes. But give me 1 second here. Okay, audio seems to be okay. All right. Make sure everything's working right. I think we're good. Yeah, I saw a few people in chat. Were those news clips real? Yes, they were. They were 100% real. Butter knives are banned in the UK now. And the Olympic imam did tell them that the refugee team could do whatever they wanted. They didn't have to follow the international rules. And that shit's for fags. Alright. Alright, give me 1 moment. I'm going to pull them in and we'll get right into it. Just getting him in now. Can you hear me?
Hello, Mr. Mitakor. It is I, Warzy.
Okay. Wait. Before you say anything, just so you know, the stream is a bit delayed if you're watching it on YouTube or anything. So we are live. Just so you know ahead of time, so you're not caught off guard here. Audio seems to be coming through. Let me just double check something really quick, and then we'll get started.
I turned off the. Okay. All right.
Okay, I think we're good. If there's a problem, if anybody in chat isn't getting the audio well enough, tell me, and I'll try to adjust it as we go along here. But I think we should be fine. So yeah, you took up the challenge. I appreciate you coming on. I'm going to give you the chance to kind of introduce yourself so people know who you are. Whatever you want to say, it's totally up to you. And then you can kind of give us your position on what you think in regards to Black Lives Matters, the movement, the individuals, events surrounding it, and we'll just kind of jump in from there.
All right. Hello, everyone in the stream. I go by the name Warzy online. And basically, Mr. Mitakor has, I guess, challenged people on Twitter to a debate with the claim hashtag Black Lives Matter is a pestilence spreading across this country. A tantruming child who's been spared the rod once too often by society. Every martyr a thug, every protest a riot. It's run by charlatans and its ranks comprised of fools. Furthermore, I welcome any retarded Black Lives Matter protester slash follower slash believer to an open live stream debate if you think I am wrong. Therefore, I have taken the challenge graciously offered by Mr. Mitakur to engage in a debate on Black Lives Matter. First, I would like to go through several of the objections which I've noticed from the alt-right or from people who are opposed to Black Lives Matter in general.
I'm sorry.
First,
Let me
argument
wait. Warzy, let me interrupt you just one sec. People in the chat are saying they're having a little bit of issue hearing your audio. It seems to be coming through okay for me, but is there any way you can adjust it and maybe raise the volume of your microphone just a little bit?
Actually, let me hang up. I will call you on my laptop to see if that will work better.
Okay.
Is that okay?
Yeah, that's fine. We'll just pick up where we left off. That's more than fine.
All right, thank you.
Okay, so we have a little bit of a technical issue. So we'll wait for a second here. Oh, wait. I think did he just ring me or did I ring him? I think I rung him. Just a moment, chat. We'll get it going. Okay. I'm going to let him... Warzy will call me back when he's got his technical stuff set up, and hopefully the volume comes in a little better. If not, we're just going to have to go with what we got. People saying they can hear him just fine. Well, if worse comes to worse, we'll just continue on as we had it set up. Not a big deal. I probably should change that because that's going to be an issue. There we go. Yeah, you all enjoying the Meadoker stream? I think it's going well. It's off to a good start, a good technical start. It's always a nice way to begin things with fucking massive technical issues, providing that quality entertainment. Chat is charming as ever. It's nice to see you fine gentlemen again. There are a lot of Kangs in the chat today. That's always great. People saying check Twitter. I'll do that later on. Right now, I just want to make sure I get this set up so we can continue on and get into it. That would be the wrong individual. Okay, Warzy's going to need a few minutes. Am I going to take calls? I don't know. It's just going to depend on how long the stream goes and what we get into talking about. If we got a lot of time left over at the end of it, yeah, I'll let people call up. We'll do some bullshit and have a laugh. But for now, I don't know. It's up in the air. There's really no way to pin that down. Yes, Chad, I'm well aware that you was all Kangs. We all Kangs in this one. Get your dicks out for Harambe and let us remember. That beautiful, beautiful individual. Okay. Okay, I think here we go. We might be ready to get this going. All right, he's still setting it up. Fantastic. Well, shit, man. Gym time is an amazing thing, really. Even when I show up on time, there's something that delays it anyway. So I don't know why the fuck you showed up at the time that I told you to. You should have shown up about a half an hour later than that, because that's when things would have begun. Everybody's pulling their dicks out for Harambe. It's a beautiful sight. I don't know, this chat looks like it might be filled with all those alt-writers Hillary was talking about. You know, I hear Weinstein relate some pretty terrible stories about you guys, harassing him on Twitter, sending him eat fresh pictures. I don't know what that's about. He's an innocent man. He didn't do anything. All he did was run Bob Dole's campaign. Why do you hate the man so much? You remember Bob Dole and his successful presidential bid? Yeah, Weinstein was the guy that ran that. What a great resume builder that was. We'll get the BLM official stance on Harambe later. We'll look that up. I'm sure there's probably somebody who's made a statement on it. I'm sure it's probably really special too. Okay, it looks like Warzy has some stuff set up. Let's see how it goes. Okay, can you hear me? It's still coming in a little distant, but let me check on the stream. Just so it takes about 30 seconds to catch up. So you want to just say something for a few minutes? Or for like 30 seconds?
Hello, this is Warzy. We're here for the debate with Mr. Mitakor, and it'll take 30 seconds for the. Can the. Yes, I can hear you. Can. All right, I'm gonna.
Okay, Warzy, this is turning into a disaster. Your volume is coming through just fine though, on the stream, but I can hear my echo from the stream catching up to you through your speakers.
Okay. Okay. That's odd. Sorry. Well, shit happens.
Now, I don't know if that's a fair debate tactic, trying to deafen me with the sound of a fucking blow dryer before we get into that. What is that? Are you in an industrial section of the city or something?
No, I'm actually fuck. You know what? Fuck. I will turn the speakers down.
Okay.
Better?
Yeah, I think we should be good to go here.
All right.
So if you just want to, we'll just start from the top. Why don't you just redo your intro if you can, and then just kind of jump into the main points that you want to talk about, and we'll kind of go from there. We'll just start fresh from here.
All right. All right. Basically, hello. I go online by the name Warzy, and I have graciously accepted Mr. Mitakor's invitation to a debate on Black Lives Matter. Okay. But all right. Basically, the quote which Mr. Mitokor has made is Black Lives Matter is a pestilence spreading across this country, a tantruming child who's been spared the rod once too often by society. Every martyr a thug, every protest a riot. It's run by charlatans and its ranks comprised of fools. I welcome any retarded hashtag Black Lives Matter protester slash follower slash believer to an open live stream debate if you think I'm wrong. So basically I am going to make a point by point response to some of the common criticisms made by the alt-right, which, let's be honest, a significant portion of your fan base is composed of people considered to be the alt-right. And the first counter which I would make is focusing on the Soros connection, because one thing I have noticed a lot is the idea that there is, you could say, a conspiracy theory, which is that George Soros is basically is funding Black Lives Matter to destroy the white race or Soros is funding Black Lives Matter in order to create a classic problem reaction solution where Black Lives Matter is being used as the vanguard to cause social and political change, which may result in a police state, which is the argument which I've heard Alex Jones and Paul Joseph Watson but views before.
No, I've never heard of them. Who are they?
Alex Jones,
Yeah, who's that? What's
Infowars.com
Infowars?
guy.
Never heard of it. What is it?
He runs Infowars.com and PrisonPlanet.com. He was one of the people who was really involved with the 9/11 Truth movement. The people,
PrisonPlanet.com. What does that deal with, like law and crime and stuff? Or they talk about?
no, PrisonPlanet.com and Infowars are news or organizations which focus on talking about how, say, the globalists may be involved in trying to screw you over, how the government probably has something to do with 9/11 or actually engaged in or actually created 9/11 or things of that nature.
But what does 9/11 have to do with running a prison?
No, prisonplanet.com is the name of Alex Jones' site. Basically, the reason Alex Jones chose that name for his site basically is he makes the claim that the quote unquote globalists are attempting to take away the rights of every human being on the planet, turning the world into a prison planet, which is why he uses the term prison planet for one of his sites. He uses the term Infowars for another one of his sites because he believes that there is, quote, a war on for your mind. So he is involved in, you could say, the propaganda war over what is truth or what is not truth.
Okay, so the guy that a lot of 9/11 conspiracies, you said, that kind of stuff. So why would we even be discussing what he thinks in regards to Black Lives Matter?
I was using him as an example of a source where I heard people claim
Because you made him sound kind of fucking crazy. So if he's fucking crazy, why would we even discuss what he thinks?
I actually have some respect for Alex Jones. I mean, I'm not saying that he is crazy. I am saying that that's how I found out about him in the past, was he was involved with the truth movement. I'm not saying that he is totally crazy. I believe that he has a point in some of the statements that he makes, and this debate is not just intended to you, Mr. Mitakor, but it's also intended to people who are criticizing Black Lives Matter in general. Is that correct, or?
Well, again, I like I said, I don't know much about running prisons or 9/11 or whatever this guy does. Who was the other one you mentioned? John Watson?
Yeah, Paul Joseph Watson is part of Alex Jones's group.
Okay, so he's his partner or something?
Yes, partner, basically.
Okay, all right. So what exactly did they say that you wanted to touch on, I guess, or what was the thing that they mainly brought up?
Basically, they're making the argument that Black Lives Matter is basically a psyops to try to create a police state. And while I may sympathize and respect Alex Jones, because, for example, I actually shook his hand about 10 years ago, I believe that he is wrong, and I believe that other people who make similar arguments to Alex Jones are not exactly coming from the right perspective.
So, wait. So you agree with his views
No,
on 9/11, or you don't? What are we talking about, the 9/11 stuff, or are we talking about his BLM stuff? Because you said 10 years ago.
We're talking about his BLM stuff.
Okay, okay. And so he thinks it's a psyop by the global elites to what, to weaken America?
And by Soros, yes.
Okay, now Soros, George Soros, he's George Soros. It sounds familiar. He's Jewish, isn't he?
Yes.
Jewish. So he's part of a group that's been kicked out of how many countries? Like 200? For causing strife and mischief? I mean, I don't know. I'm just asking. Is that true?
It's a bit hard to make that statement, because actually if because the argument that you're going for is making the argument that the Ashkenazi Jews have been kicked out of a large amount of countries over a period of time, but it's a bit inaccurate, because the Ashkenazi Jews are not the Jews of the Bible. They are descended from people who converted to Judaism in the early Middle Ages, just as for example in the Roman Empire, a lot of the Jews are not the Jews of the Bible. They were people who converted to Judaism during the period uh, before there was a divorce between the idea of what Christianity is versus the idea of what Judaism is.
So what kind of Jew would Soros be? Is he one of the old-fashioned Jews, or is he one of the pretend Jews?
He's an Ashkenazi. You could make the argument that he is a fake Jew, which is something which Jewish people have actually pushed forward as an argument. For example, the book "The Invention of the Jewish People" by an Israeli author actually makes the Ashkenazi theory of them being basically fake Jews.
Okay, so if Soros is this guy that presents himself as Jewish, and he's not even really Jewish, he's a fake Jew, is he trustworthy? I mean, Alex Jones seems to have this worry about global elites running some kind of psyop to, I don't know what, undermine America. I do know that when you look at individuals like D-Ray, they're where are they sitting? I mean, they're in a home owned by people like James and Robin Wood that have connections to Soros's Open Society Institute.
Yeah.
And I mean that's weird to me, at least from the perspective of where D-Ray is. He's making $165,000 a year at the district that he's at as one of the top people, and that's on top of speaking engagements. That's on top of media, and that's on top of even his Yale appointment, where he's running classes, basically talking about. I mean, my God, they had a paper where they were discussing in defense of looting. So, I mean, D-Ray's getting out there. D-Ray's making a shit ton of money, let's be honest. And I'm not saying that's not rightfully earned. I mean, he's out there, he's saying what he's saying, and he's getting paid for it. But what I find weird is, if he's making all this money, why would he be in that home owned by those people that have a connection to this individual who's a fake Jew that Alex Jones apparently thinks is part of the global elite?
I'll be honest. Basically, there's basically if you go back in history, Malcolm X actually was in a similar position where he basically uh, got by basically staying with sympathetic black people, or quote unquote white liberals, or by various other groups. So I mean, just because he is hanging out with someone with controversial with a controversial history. For example, Soros basically wrecking the economy of Malaysia and Britain the in the 1990s, doesn't necessarily mean that he is in cahoots with Soros, or that he is what you could consider a pawn to Soros. Because
Well, let me ask you this, Warzy. Have you ever slept in somebody's house you didn't know? Like, I mean, I'm not going to go. I'm not going to go sleep at some dude's house that I don't know. And the weird thing is, Soros, like you said, Malaysia, Britain, had an impact on the economies of foreign countries. So it would just seem like, hey, if you're going to sleep over at somebody's house, namely George Soros's own fucking home, why would you associate with that when he's got this history, like you said, of having his ties in economic policies and political policies that shape different countries, and mostly to their detriment in some cases. It seems to be a weird association. I wouldn't do it. I'm not going to go chill at some guy's house that I don't fucking know. I mean, maybe D-Ray gets down like that, but I don't.
I'll be honest. There's a certain mentality among some people. I'm not going to say that that it's only say a black mentality, but the mentality is if someone offers you a place to crash at and you don't have anywhere else to go, you will accept it. And furthermore, I would like to point out, if you look at a lot of the the so-called central group of Black Lives Matter, as in the actual people who founded it and the actual people who are part of what you could say is a formal group. A lot of them have said some pretty anti bourgeoisie statements. For example,
Well, wait, I'd like to interject here because you're
Mhm.
talking about kind of the origins of the movement. I know that Alicia Garza, is it? Am I saying that right? I'm not 100%
Garza,
sure.
yes.
But they talked about how Black Lives Matters is a network, and not interested in policing who is or who is not a part of the movement. So, talking about a central structure, they're talking about kind of this amorphous thing that anybody can be a part of.
Mhm.
Nobody's being policed out of it. So, I just want to interject that because I think it's important. Because when you hear something like, well, from the people, kind of at the center of it or at the top of it, even by the founder's own admission, there is no top or center.
Mm. But no, but your statement by Garza makes it seem as if Black Lives Matter is a network without people policing who is or who is not part of the movement. However, there would still be people who help to create the movement in the first place, or you could make
Well,
you
she
or you
she
could
is
make
the one that started it. She was
yes
one of the three that started it. So who
yes
better to be an authority on what it was envisioned to be than the person that began it?
yes. Think of the comparison to some peer-to-peer peer-to-peer net networks, like for example Ganutella, back when that existed. There is no policing on who can or cannot join this peer-to-peer network, but there would still be nodes which might have something along the lines of an elevated privilege. However, they do not control the network, and they cannot kick out people from the network. However, they have a elevated position relative to the rest of the network.
Right, but I don't see her talking about peer-to-peer networks or nodes anywhere in that statement. It
It's
was
an
just
analogy.
no, I understand that, but what I'm saying is her words verbatim were we're not into policing who is or who is not a part of the movement.
Okay.
It's not meant to operate with a central structure or hierarchy. Um, but you know what? We'll get to that later. I want to kind of follow the line that we were going on with back kind of to Soros, I suppose. Um, so I mean, from what I've heard, George Soros has a history of manipulating different nations for whatever reason, sometimes
Yeah.
to their detriment. D. Ray is making a good amount of money. I mean, I'd say $165,000 a year is a pretty fucking good living, wouldn't you?
Yes.
So it's not like he doesn't have a place to stay. He could buy a place with that kind of a salary. So why is he staying there?
You should talk to him about that, honestly.
Right, but I mean, when
I
we're
think
when we're discussing people like Alex Jones or this Planet Prison or whatever the fuck it is, um, they're talking about global elites, and I'm guessing they're going to be talking about alt-right conspiracies, and they're going to be talking about tinfoil hat shit. But I mean, how tinfoil hat is that? I mean, if you've got a global elite like Soros, who's an international player, who does have a connection through the housing he's providing for a person like D. Ray, who's connected to the movement, it
Mhm.
doesn't make it
Uh,
seem conspiratorial. It seems like there's a tangible link.
yes. Yes. I did not deny that there is a connection between Soros and Black Lives Matter, though. I was criticizing the argument that Soros is funding Black Lives Matter for the endpoints which I have extrapolated earlier, like destroying the white race or trying to bring about a federal police state or something like that.
Well, I mean, then we're talking motive rather than result, but I mean, the result
Okay.
seems bad enough, doesn't it? When you brought up the two previous examples of the kind of economic impact you had on Malaysia or
Mhm.
Britain, or even Soros's kind of international machinations when it comes to European law and immigration. Um, you can kind of see the end results of that playing out. We could sit here and speculate that George Soros is doing it because he wants to destroy the white race, or maybe he just thought it'd be funny. I have no idea what the fuck goes through his
Doing it
mind.
for the laws, basically. All right. Yeah.
So his motivations really don't seem necessarily important. The result of his interference does. And I would say that it would raise an issue, wouldn't you? Or wouldn't you agree that he seems to have a connection to this, just based off off the things that he seems to do and that he's known for doing?
Yes, I can understand that that sort of argument, but the thing is, my my counter argument actually is that Soros is basically a liberal who wishes to reform governments. He wishes to promote the capitalist ec- economic system, which spread across the Eastern Bloc after the collapse of the former Soviet Union, as well as the rest of the Eastern Bloc countries. So my argument is more that Soros is a capitalist who is trying to promote capitalist means versus some of the other statements. And furthermore, I would like to point out, there have been people who are claiming that Soros gave what $5 or $10 million to Black Lives Matter. However, the recent leaks, which came out, showed that Soros was only providing $500,000, and the thing is, regardless of uh, regardless of whether or not Soros is funding the Black Lives Matter group, these sorts of incidents would have occurred anyway. Because have you heard of the historian Peter Turchin?
Well, now we're kind of getting off subject. I want to try to address
I'm
a
using this
couple.
as I'm oh I will explain it as to why I'm using Turchin in connection to Soros later.
Okay.
Um,
I want to try to address at least 2 points that you raised. One was the leaks regarding Soros. You're talking about the DNC leaks, or are we talking about
no,
another set of
there
leaks?
were some leaks from the Soros Open Society
Okay, you're talking about
Foundation.
that one itself. Okay, because he was mentioned a little bit in the DNC stuff.
Yes.
Okay, so when we're talking about the Open Society Foundation, whatever it is, this man runs so many different organizations, it's hard to keep track of. But one, you did mention, yes, there is a record of him. You said what was it, $500,000?
Yes.
Okay, he's providing accommodations to Debray. And the other thing I would say in relation to this is we don't know how much was leaked, and this was only from one of the organizations that he runs. It's not completely unreasonable to assume that he could be funneling money, if he was to decide to do that for whatever reason, through multiple organizations into Black Lives Matters or into key proponents or individuals that are in the assumed leadership, and doing it in a way that's harder to track. I mean, again, this is a guy that goes around apparently faking being a Jew, so who knows what kind of crazy shit he gets up to.
Yeah.
So he could be running it through 20 different organizations. We don't know. But there is a record, if you take the leaks to be real, that he is putting money into it. You know, be it a dollar, be it 500,000 or 500 million, he's putting money into it. I think that's important to raise because I don't want to I don't want people to assume that, well, that's all the money that's going into it because the leaks said so. Well, the leaks are narrow in scope in relation to the operation that George Soros runs.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, I'm sorry. Go. You can go on with your historian point.
Oh, okay. Peter Turchin has basically done. Turchin has basically created a discipline in academic studies known as cloud dynamics. Basically, cloud dynamics is the real life version of the psychohistory which you see in Isaac Asimov's Foundation novels. For those who are unaware, psychohistory basically is
History written by women, huh? Am I right? Yeah, you get that? It's a funny one, yeah?
It, good joke. Great bands. I was going more of psychohistory is basically the history of societies over long periods of time with a large enough population that you can actually create formulas to understand how societies live, grow, and die. Think of it basically like Spengler's or Toynbee's history, where he talks about where they talk about the life cycle of a civilization or a culture. So Turchin basically did a bunch of calculations where the United States basically is in a period of social and civil strife. The the last such example of the strife was in the 1960s. The last period of strife before then was the 1920s, and the period of strife before then was in the 1870s. So there is a historical pattern of there being a period of strife. So
Well,
basically,
how does this relate to George Soros' involvement with
um,
Black Lives Matter?
because basically the point is, even if Soros was not funding Black Lives Matter, something else would have taken its place.
Now, do you think that would hold up in court if I went into court and said, "Well, Your Honor, I raped and killed her, but it really shouldn't matter because it would have happened eventually by somebody else." Do you think they'd let me walk out, or would they hold me culpable?
No, but we're not talking about raping and killing people.
Well, we're talking about
Political strife in countries
no,
which
we're talking about direct actions. I mean, you're saying, well, Soros intervention, if there was some, what doesn't really matter because history is cyclical. We go through these different cycles. This would have happened eventually without his hand being in it. But what I'm saying in response to that is that's crazy because if he does have a hand in it, then he is responsible. You can't just pass the blame off and say, "Well, shit would have happened anyway." That's not a that's not a defense that would hold up under any circumstances in any other regard. I mean, I used something that's ridiculous. It's it's hyperbole, but it gets the point across that he is involved. It seems like he's involved. There seems to be connections. We can't just shuck off that responsibility and let that fake Jew get away with it.
yes, but how would $500,000 uh, be the catalyst for the entire movement, though? I understand your argument, which is that Soros has some sort of responsibility because he is funding these organizations, but my counter argument to the statements of other people was it's not created by Soros because there is a pre-existing strife which you could argue that he took advantage of.
Well, $500,000 can buy a lot of fucking cocaine and hookers. I don't know. Maybe that's enough to sway somebody's opinion. Maybe that's enough to make somebody like D-Ray do something that you want him to do. You don't need to disperse those funds to every motherfucker walking the street. You just need to make sure that the people who are the most vocal and the most in front of the camera are doing what you want. $500,000 is enough to bribe off a few people, I would assume. I mean, that's a lot of money. Would it be unfair to say that somebody would suck somebody's dick for $500,000? Do you think George Soros?
That would be a very fair statement to make.
How many dicks do you think George Soros has gotten sucked for $500,000?
Perhaps more than 9,000, over 9,000 maybe.
Oh, it's a lot. Yeah, it's a lot. Okay. Well, let's try to move on. I don't want to focus too much on Soros. I get what your point is. There are people that are saying that he's got a large influence on this.
Yeah.
I don't know how large the influence is. It does seem that he has some connections. I would think is fair to say. It would seem that he has had a track record of interfering in things, and there being a negative result of that. And I don't think it's unfair to assume that $500,000 would be enough to bribe off somebody to get them to say or do or behave the way that you want, and that they could pass those along as marching orders.
True.
Okay. What was the next point you wanted to bring up?
Yes. Soros. Oh yes. the second argument, which I have heard people say, is that why isn't Black Lives Matter focusing on black crime? Like
How could you keep track of all of it? Let's be honest. How could you keep track of all of it?
keep track of all the
Black on black crime. That's a joke. I'm joking with you. It's a little tit for tat. Go ahead. I'm just fucking around.
Basically, the thing is, one, there are people who were involved with Black Lives Matter who did say that something should be done to address black on black crime, but the most important argument is that the purpose of Black Lives Matter is not to deal with black on black crime. The purpose of Black Lives Matter is to deal with over policing of black people and black communities by the state. And I would like to add on to that by pointing out there are plenty of groups, NGOs, often staffed by black people themselves, whose entire raison d'etre is to deal with black on black crime. For example, have you heard of the group Ceasefire?
I'm gonna guess the reason I haven't heard of them is because they're not doing a very fucking good job.
No, actually, no. They actually do a good job, but the thing is, it is not reported by CNN or other national orgs. For example, in my city, Chicago, there have been articles written on how ceasefire has decreased the shootings by a rate of 20 or 30% in a year, and there are studies which show how ceasefire has actually decreased the rates of black on black crime by a significant amount. Furthermore, even groups like not groups, even people like Al Sharpton have made statements against black on black crime and have actually marched in the actual hood to go and tell black people that they shouldn't kill other black people. It's not like there are groups. It's not like there are no groups which deal with black on black crime. There are plenty of them. It's just that the media is not reporting on it.
Okay, well we got a few things to cover with this one. All right. I think it's fair to kind of clarify this. Is race a social construct?
Um. Hmm. Shit. Actually, yes. I would make the make the argument that yes, race is a it is a social construct.
Well,
But
then wouldn't it be fair to say that black lives don't matter because nobody's black? I mean, if race is a social construct, then they
no,
can't really matter. It's not a real thing.
no. I said it is a social construct, not that it is not real. I will give you a comparison. In the 19th and 20th centuries, several nationalisms have basically grew and appeared. For example, Poland, the idea of Poland as a nation appeared in the 19th century. The idea of Ukraine as a nation appeared in the 19th century. The idea of Korea as a nation appeared in the 19th and the 20th century. There were and people were willing to fight and die for these nations. The fact is, however, that these nations are are social constructs. They were created by intellectuals who took advantage of a pre-existing idea and turned it into a nation. So while these ideas are social constructs, they still have a purpose. They still have a presence in which people are willing to fight and die for them. So
Okay,
there are
okay, wait,
real
wait. Let me
in the sense that people-
wait. Let me interject something here. Then, if we're going to go forward with the idea that race is a social construct, but it still exists,
because
I,
people believe in it.
because people believe in it, what are the ideological borders of black? What makes you black?
Oh, there are it's actually it's interesting that you make that statement. There are different def, definitions on what is black. There is the biological aspect, which is the idea that you have to biologically be black, or you have to be descended from Africans. There is the social. There's also the cultural definition of being black in the sense that people are assimilated into a black culture and that they marry into blackness. So it's not exactly there is not a concrete definition on who is and who is not black. If you look at some of the writings of
So
black
so anybody
poets,
could be black.
uh,
There's
not sure about
there's no concrete definitions. I could be black if I wanted to be.
there are definitions which have some sort of social sanction, but it is not as if there is a hard definition on what is black because
Is this why
or
people
because or
is this
because
why
or
people believe that is this why people believe that Sean King is black, a very obviously white man, or Rachel Dizelle from the NAACP is black, a very
um
obviously white woman?
yes
Because those motherfuckers are so white. If they had a child, that would be the most albino motherfucker and would combust in sunlight. Is all I'm saying. So is that what's going on here? Is anybody can be
it's
black, so they're
actually
accepting?
it's actually interesting that there was a NAACP member who basically was indistinguishable from a American white because he had blue eyes and he had blonde hair. But in Louisiana, because of the Jim Crow laws, he was considered black because he was some extremely small percentage of black. So he was able to basically pass as a white person and uh, use his knowledge as how white people behave. And this was this was back during the Jim Crow era U.S. So people like Sean King or Rachel Dolezal aren't exactly new because there's a concept known as passing from the Jim Crow era where depending on
Wait, did
or
they get that phrase from the transsexual community? I've heard that I've heard
uh,
trannies bring that up. Trans passing, is that the same thing?
no passing is it, at least in this context it it is from the Jim Crow era because basically there were black people who were extremely light skinned who were able to pass as white, but because of the Jim Crow restrictions, you were either black or you were white. So there were up to 500,000 black people who basically looked and were able to pass as white, and they basically married into white families.
Okay, so let me ask you this then. If there's this kind of almost non-defined border surrounding what is black because there's so many different opinions on it, if it's a social construct that's shaped by multiple people to mean multiple different things, wouldn't it be better to say all lives matter instead of black lives matter, since technically anybody can be black under that kind of a definition? I could be black, you could be black, the guys in chat could all be black, the whitest person on earth could be black because some ideological construct says so. Because there's nothing else defining it if that's how it is. If anybody can throw their hat in the arena and say, this is how I define it, this is a culture that I believe it's a part of, anybody can be black. Therefore, all lives are black. Therefore, all lives matter rather than black lives matter.
Hmm. That is a that is a good argument for you to make. However, there is one thing which you are forgetting, which is are you accepted by other people as black?
That sounds
So
like that sounds like
for
that sounds like
example,
that sounds like racism to me. Are you
how
racist?
how how is it racism?
How would you're telling me whether I pass or not? That sounds like Jim Crow. If I, are we talking one drop rule here? Are we, Hitler's Nazi Germany? How much Jewish blood do you have in you?
No, but when you assimilate into an ethnic group, a marker of whether you assimilate into into an ethnic group is, are you accepted as a co-ethnic by that group?
But see, I've already defined that anybody can be black. Therefore, I could just get a majority of white people who are now black people to say that I am black, and therefore I set the agenda, don't I? In fact, I could say that I could get white people together and say that we're all black, and then define what black is with that majority to exclude actual black people. I could make you white.
Actually, that could work, and that is part of how ethnic identities are created.
So
that
then,
is something that you can do, but
so why should I sit here and listen to your white?
considered.
Why should I listen to you white splain to me, a black man, what's going on when clearly I'm the expert here?
Because I already mentioned that there is a biological definition earlier.
No, you said that this is shaped by multiple opinions. I mean, if we're going to say that at the end result is the one that has the definitive say is biology, well, then we have a different discussion of what black is, don't we?
I didn't say that the definitive definition is biology, though. What I said though was that there is a biological definition, but however, you pointed out that there are a multitude of definitions and interpretations of black. So by that very logic, you can't say that I am white splaining to you, because by your own
But you
admission,
no
that is
you
different.
are you totally are. When I asked you to this is how we got into this conversation, is race a social construct, and you explained to me your opinion on that and the different kind of opinions that exist regarding it. We then further went into that, and you explained that there were the kind of different ideologies that all come together to shape what this social construct is. But it is a social construct, maybe fed by, in part, biology, but other things, different philosophies, different viewpoints. So if that is if that is how it's out there in the public, if that is the notion behind what blackness is, if it's not defined purely through biology but through multiple different viewpoints, and biology is not the exclusive one, it is not the definitive one, then yeah, I mean the argument falls apart. All lives matter because all lives are black. Or I can do ridiculous shit like claim I'm black, get a bunch of white people to claim they're black, and then throw black people out of Black Lives Matters.
Not necessarily. By your own statement, you said that all lives could matter because all lives could be black.
Be black, yeah.
Note the word could be black. Not necessarily is black. Not necessarily identifies as black. Not necessarily has been accepted as black by co-ethnics, but could be black. So that section is where your argument would fall apart, actually.
Well, I'm talking about a potential future action, not something that's happened. That's why I use the caveat of could. As far as co-ethnics, again, like I had explained, I could just get a majority of whites to be my co-ethnics, claim they're black, that I'm black, and then we as together have defined what black is with the predominant opinion of what shapes it. And then, I mean, it could even take it a step further. I could make you not white. I could make you purple and say purple aren't people. So all lives matter, but you don't because you're purple.
Yes, but that is a good argument, actually.
So do you see why race as a social construct? Do you see why race as a social construct is semi-fucking retarded? Do you see where it breaks? Do you see where it breaks down?
It would be semi fucking retarded, because there have not exactly been these sorts of struggles over who is or who is not, black or white or German, where people would, for example, get a bunch of Koreans and claim that they're Japanese, but that the actual Japanese from Japan are no longer Japanese. So I'm not sure how it would work in in this context. You could make an argument. You could make an argument in the future that 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 the sort of fluidity over ethnic and racial identities may be a problem in the future, but I'm not sure about now. But if you say that claiming that claiming that ethnic and racial identities are being partially a social construct is, as you phrase it, semi fucking retarded. What better way would you use to determine what is or is not black? If there was a problem which was existing now of a bunch of white people claiming that they were black and not being accepted by black people, that would that would be that would be a acceptable time to bring up this argument. But
Well, my response to that would be, now that I'm a black man, I can claim that because of socioeconomic factors, I'm, not as well educated as other people, and I couldn't explain to you how, and that you're being bigoted, purple person, by picking on me.
It's kind of interesting, actually. In Argentina, the term negro has actually taken on a class aspect. So your argument actually has some sort of historical basis where the rich people in Argentina basically claimed that poor people who were physically white were considered negro, were considered black because they were poor, i.e. they were put into the position of being a nigger, for lack of a better term.
Please don't appropriate that word. As a trans nigger, which I now am, I find that to be highly fucking offensive, purple person.
Do you sexually identify as an attack helicopter?
Well, I can. That's a society we live in, right? Where there's no
Mhm.
clear-cut definition of anything. I could be born white with a penis and claim that I'm a fucking panda bear. And you as society have to accept it because a bunch of people that are college educated got together one day when they were fucking bored and decided, let's come up with a social construct or an ideology that lets us make society fucking insufferable for everybody.
It's kind of funny because that's basically how nationalism as an idea came about. I.e., there was a pre-existing pseudo national identity, but intellectuals or politicians basically used the pre-existing identity or grafted on new things to the identity. And you could make the argument that some aspects of nationalism have had a deleterious effect on society.
Okay.
But
All right. Well, let's. I want to try to get to as many topics as we can.
Okay.
We're kind of touching on as many as we can.
All right.
So we talked a little bit about Soros. We talked about a little bit about race. What would you like to cover next? What area would you like to delve into?
Yes. Um, there's an argument which is made basically that that because black people have an extremely high crime rate, that the actions of the state against black people are justified, i.e. the blacks rape white women at something like
Well, wait. I'm
the rate
confused.
that
Wait. I'm confused. I'm confused just out of the gate. How are we even talking about black crime statistics when it's a social construct? How are they defining black?
Hmm?
How are they defining black or white crime statistics if race is a social construct?
because people believe in
No.
the
I mean,
social
how are they ticking off that box? What determination
people
are
who
they using?
identify as black or identify as white.
So I could go out and rob a store and say I'm black, and they'll write it down as black.
I don't know, but that is possible.
Okay. I just wanted to get that. All right. Go on. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt. Go ahead.
Okay. Basically, people who are socially considered to be black uh, are apparently are more likely to kill or shoot or rape white people versus people who are considered to be white killing or maiming or raping black people. But there's some this is where the term that quote there are lies, and statistics come in, because one, black people are 13% of the American population, whereas whites are, depending on your uh, source or opinion, between 60 to 75% of the population. So, for example, if you were to randomly go postal and shoot a random person in the middle of a crowded street, you are more likely to be white, versus if you, as a white person, decide to randomly shoot someone, it is a lower chance of said person hitting or killing a black person. So so it's not necessarily that blacks are targeting whites because they are whites. It is that if you are a criminal and you're, attacking someone, statistically speaking, you are more likely to hit a white person. And I would like to point out, actually, even if you factor in a larger black crime rate relative to the population, there are issues in 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 the sense that the black population is over policed already. So the studies would show that blacks are more likely to engage in stabbings, shootings, etc., are are actually off, because the forces of the state are over policing black neighborhoods, as opposed to policing white neighborhoods. So because the state is focusing its resources on black neighborhoods, uh, there is a disparity in how the crime numbers and how the crime rates come up.
Okay, let's
Furthermore,
let's let's well, yeah, and I'll let you continue on, but I just kind of want to break down a little bit of what you talked about. Okay, so when we're talking about black crime statistics, and you brought up the point, well, if you were to just go out and commit a crime, or to shoot somebody, statistically, you'd have a better chance of hitting somebody who's white because there's a larger white population.
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying? What is the percentage of black people in the United States, just population-wise? And you don't have to have an exact number, but just an idea. 13%. How much crime does that 13% account for when it comes to robberies, rapes, murders? And again, you don't need a specific. I'm not asking you to be like, oh well,
It's
shit, I've
about
got the stat right here, but just the ballpark.
it's from according to the FBI stats, it is about 40 to 50%.
Okay, so you've got a population of 13% committing 40 to 50% of the crime.
Mhm.
So when we're talking about where states are focusing resources,
Which is
we're
reported.
right, reported. Fair enough. We're getting into an argument of, are the police going to where crime is, or is where the police are? Is crime following police where they go? Which would seem to be counterintuitive. That
It is more.
the police show up and now more people are getting arrested for crimes, but these crimes, again, relate to serious offenses, or at least the ones we're kind of talking about here. I mean, we could have a discussion about drug-related offenses. We could have a discussion about traffic violations and
Yeah.
DUIs and.
Basically, my argument is that the black neighborhoods are considered, for lack of a better term, to be low hanging fruit, which is which is that which is that due to events such sorry due to policies such as stop and frisk, black people are pulled over and searched, or they are focused on more, they don't even if they haven't committed any crimes. But when the police search them or have an excuse claiming that they look quote unquote suspicious,
Mhm.
they do find something which the police can use to retroactively say that this was a justified stop.
Okay.
So,
Well, let's look at it in terms of gambling, at least if I were going to use an analogy. What would you rather put your money on? Something that's more of a sure bet, or something that has worse odds? We're talking about 13% of the population committing 50% of the crime. So you're talking about stop and frisk. You're talking about, I'm guessing you're getting into something like racial profiling. You want to bring that up? You're a police officer. Your job is to stop crime. You want to make a neighborhood safe. No, wait. I know you can argue that later, but
Okay.
I'm just saying the basic idea that most people have is that you're a police officer. Your job is to stop crime, and you want to make the neighborhood safer. And you've got, basically you've got a small percentage of the population that's creating an equal amount to the larger percent of the population. What do you want to focus your effort on? What do you think is going to lead to more arrests and more convictions when it comes to violent or criminal behavior? What are you going to put your money down on? Are you going to put your money down on a sure bet, or are you going to play the long odds and maybe get fucked over and waste time and resources?
You would do the sure bet, which is what I pointed out earlier, which is that the police are basically going for low hanging fruit, which is that it's.
Well, when you say low hanging fruit, though, that low hanging fruit is still criminal activity, isn't it?
Yes, but the thing is, there is an over policing of certain people's criminal activity relative to other people's criminal activity, which they can get away for.
Well, isn't that determined, though, by the higher likelihood that they are committing a crime?
But the thing is, the over policing is disproportionate, even if you factor in the point that blacks commit more crime relative to their population now.
What would be proportionate? I mean, how are we even going to define that if we're going to sit down and say, well, this is a proportionate amount of policing when looking at the black population versus the white population? What would be the metric we're going to use to measure that?
Uh, there are studies which have been made, which for example, I understand that you're probably that you probably am not going to like this argument, but you can use, for example, drug usage, and say that blacks and whites use drugs about the equal rates. Therefore, with this information in hand, you can adjust the policing of black and white, so that the police would equally patrol white areas as well as black areas, versus things such as flat out ignoring uh, white people in the suburbs.
Well, see, this would come back to statistics, though. Let's say you've got 10 people standing before you, 70% or 7 of them are white. 30% or 3 of them well, shit, I'm sorry, I'm off already. So 13%. So let's just say 2 of them are black. Fair enough? And we'll make it 20%. And 8 of them are white. We're getting rid of all other races. Remember, it's a social construct. Whitey took everybody over, and now those 8 people, they're all white. So you got white and black. There's an equal amount of chance that these 2 groups, the 2 black guys and the 8 white guys, are doing drugs or selling drugs or buying drugs. Now, you're a police officer and you've got budget limitations, meaning you can only go up to that line of 10 people and frisk only so many of them. What do you think, knowing that 50% of the black people and 50% of the white people are both committing this crime in equal proportions, but you've only got 2 black people in this line and 8 white people? Which do you think is a better use of resources if you want to bust people for drugs? If you want to try to tackle that problem with your limited budget and your limited outreach? Where do you want to start? What is going to yield the most benefit for you? What is the best bet?
If you are a white police officer, it would make sense for you to focus on the white drug dealers, because you're trying to save your communities and whatnot from drugs. That is the stated logic of the drug war, which is to protect their communities from the deleterious effects of marijuana and other drugs.
Are only
white
drug dealers arrested on drug offenses? When we're talking drug offense incarceration rates, do you think the majority are users, or do you think the majority are dealers that are getting arrested?
It's about even, I believe.
Okay.
I could be wrong, actually. If you have evidence which would.
No, we're so far off into the fucking woods, my friend. I'm lost as shit. I don't have those kind of statistics in front of me. If you don't, that's fair enough. We'll just have to speculate. But
Okay.
I think the point that I'm getting at here is, You're talking about two different population groups, one much smaller than the other, that's committing an equal amount of crime. Now, people would look at police going into those communities, the smaller percentage one, and getting more arrests and say, well, that's your profiling, or you're going into this community and you're doing something just because they're black. I would say, as a counter argument to that, that when you're looking at budget limitations, when you're looking at, there's only so much shit you can do in a day, right? I mean, that's fair. It doesn't matter what profession you're doing. It's like a doctor. You go into a doctor's office. The doctor can't run every test that he has. He doesn't have the time or the money to do that. So he's got to try to narrow it down to what's the most likely suspect.
Yes.
Now, the fact of the matter is, if you've got two different population groups and one's smaller than the other, but they're committing the same amount of crime, the most likely suspect to start with is going to be that black population. And I don't think it's racist to say that. I mean, if the statistics show that's what's happening, if these are actual crimes and people are being convicted of them, I suppose you could make the argument that it's all planted, it's all bullshit, that every black arrest that's ever happened is completely fictitious and made up. But barring that kind of an explanation, it would make the most sense that if you're got that budget, you're going to go there. And when you're looking at large cities like a Chicago or a Baltimore or a Detroit, when you look at the population breakdowns of those cities, they are a large population, a majority black. So you've got a majority black population in a large city with a police force that's looking to find and stop crime. And even though that's a majority of the population, it makes sense when you look at it through the numbers that that's where they're going to go. That's the area they're going to have the most trouble with. Is that unfair? I mean, does this sound like this is some kind of crazy racist shit to you, or could you see why a police officer would do that?
But I did point out that those reports are a bit slanted because of the pre-existing over-policing of black neighborhoods now.
Oh, okay, but I mean that's that. So when you're talking about the pre-existing over-policing of black neighborhoods, what are we?
A higher.
What's the motivation behind that then? I think this is going to get to the root of the cause. So when we're saying they're over-policing them, right? Are we saying there's a racial motive to that?
You can make the argument that at the very least in the early years there was a racial motive, or at the very least, even if there is not a racial motive, the policies fed into the existing biases of law enforcement officials, judges, etc., to provide a racially disproportionate effect of policing. For example, in the 1980s, there was a journalist by the name of Gary Webb. He basically did a bunch of he did some investigative he did some research into the cocaine epidemic. Well, the crack epidemic, to be precise, which was occurring in the United States during the 1980s. But the research and the interviews which he provided showed basically that the American government was basically dumping crack into black neighborhoods in the 1980s, and that the American government was targeting black and Latino neighborhoods during that time period when they were selling crack so that they could fund the Contras in Nicaragua. So
in a limited scope and a certain time period and a geographically confined area.
Which was
what I would raise as a counterpoint to this is when we're talking about perhaps a racial motivation behind the policing, right? For over policing, I guess. What would the response then be to a city like Baltimore or Detroit, where you've got basically black-run government? You look at Baltimore, for instance, when they had the riots that they did, black mayor, black DA, large presence on the police force that are black. Why would black people racially profile themselves?
Because they have internalized.
You're gonna say it, aren't you?
Yes,
You're gonna say it.
They have internalized the negative statements about themselves.
So what else would that be called? That'd be called internalized racism?
Racism. Yes, I use the SJW term.
So are they just a bunch of fucking Uncle Toms then, or what are we talking about here?
I would make the argument that they are working towards towards interests which may not be in the best benefit of their people.
Now, you do know that the mayor of Baltimore went on television and said that the protesters, when they were, flipping cars over and burning down shops, deserved a space to be destructive.
Mhm.
I mean, she encouraged it. She didn't go out there and say, "Oh, these fucking black people, look at what they're doing." She basically gave them a thumbs up and said, "Good job."
That is a public statement because basically when someone fucks up badly and causes events which lead to a riot, often they will have the good sense to not make it not make it explicit by say calling in the police to crack down on the riots and on the rebellions. So my argument is that is a calculated act, and or she did that precisely to ward away those types of attempts, those sorts of accusations.
Now, how is saying that the mayor of Baltimore has internalized racism, or that these officials have internalized racism, as as a reason, I would say, for the over policing, that's the justification that they do that? How would that be any different than somebody like you'd mentioned earlier, Planet Prison, with Jones Alex, whatever the fuck it was? How would that be any different than him saying, well, it's a global elite that are funding Black Lives Matters? I mean, wouldn't those both be equally conspiratorial?
Yes.
So
I'm not
it's a conspiratorial view then, that the reason they're over policing is because it's racially internalized racism.
It is a conspiratorial view, which is reinforced by historical fact, which is
Wouldn't Alex Jones say the same thing when it comes to Soros? I mean, we talked about Malaysia and Britain.
if he finds it, yes, he would, but
So who's who's right here though? I mean, but you see how crazy that is. So who's right here? I mean, is Alex Jones? If what you're saying is, wait. So Alex Jones is right that George Soros is intentionally using Black Lives Matters to cause strife in the United States.
I didn't say that either.
Okay, but what you're
As
telling,
I said earlier,
yep, go ahead.
I said that I respect Alex Jones, and I believe that he has a point, at least to a certain extent. That does not mean that I agree with that everything that Alex Jones says.
Well, I'm not agreeing. I mean, I'm not asking you to agree with everything.
Okay.
Just that specific statement. Do you agree that Alex Jones is correct, using the same kind of logic that you're using for them having internalized racism, and that leads to a over-policing of black neighborhoods? It's the same thing, isn't it? I mean, he's using that same kind of logic to say, well, George Soros, I've got some, history-based evidence, and there are some connections. So clearly, George Soros is funding Black Lives Matters to cause strife in the United States. Would you agree that he's correct in that assertion?
No, I.
And why would I agree with you that
disagree.
internalized racism is the cause for over-policing in black neighborhoods and black-run cities?
Yes, and I can provide evidence historically dealing with the class relations among black people in the United States, dating from the post Civil War era.
What does the Civil War have to do with the mayor of Baltimore? I mean, how does that factor into her specifically as an individual running a city?
Because she comes from a certain class position, and she also has
Do you know what? Okay, well, let me ask you this: do you know what family she's from? What her parents are?
No.
Okay, do you know what her socioeconomic status is? Was she from the suburbs, the rural area, the inner city?
No,
do you know? Do you know?
No.
Okay.
I
do you know anything about her?
Some knowledge, yes. I believe she has an MBA or a PhD from a pretty good college.
Okay. So, I mean, but you're talking about making links. You're talking about, well, I've got all this historical based evidence and it relates to how black people, think or are treated or how they might behave in her position. But
Mhm.
you don't know anything about her specifically. For all you know, she might be black passing. She might be Rachel Dizelle, right? I mean, we don't know anything about her family or where she comes from or her attitude towards what black people are.
What about her accent then?
What about her accent?
Does she does she speak black to you? Does
How does somebody speak a social construct?
because while nations are social constructs, do people who belong to certain national groups do speak in certain ways.
Okay, and so what?
For
What? Well, okay,
for
I'll follow along with that. So
Mhm.
what does black speak then? What does that sound like? Define
African
it for me.
American vernacular English.
No, I mean I need you to use some examples. Just humor me. What would that sound like? What should she be sounding like if I were to say that's black?
All right. I will give you an example. he- Here is an example sentence in what is known linguistically as standard American English. Um, he is going to the store. That is standard American English, which is spoken by white Americans. The equivalent speech in African American vernacular English or Ebonics is he finna go to the store.
Okay. Well.
Do you have a video of how the mayor speaks when she is not in public or how she naturally speaks? Because
No, I've only heard
those
her.
are
I've
things
only
are
heard
not
her at press conferences. I've never really
okay.
heard her giving like a private conversation or maybe like kind of a more
Yeah.
private event. You know what I mean? More laid back. It's always been in front of the cameras, in front of the mics. But kind of going back to your point of does she sound black? Let me ask you this: Are you black?
Yes.
Okay. Why aren't you speaking in Ebonics?
Because I'm speaking to a foreigner in a way which would presumably be easier for other people to understand. This is a online medium, and I'm speaking to foreigners, so uh, it's probably a good idea to try to speak in a somewhat standard American dialect.
Do you normally speak like this?
Um, Fuck, I actually do not know. I mean, have you heard of the term code switching,
Yes,
where
I know
you
it. I know it.
subconsciously
Yep, code
switch?
switching. Yep.
So I might subconsciously switch into Ebonics when I'm speaking with other Black people. I may not notice it. I may subconsciously notice it, but as of this moment, I'm speaking to white people, so I am speaking in a standard dialect.
Okay, but if we're going on just basic speech, and is this person speaking black or not? And you're saying that, well, maybe I do it when I'm talking to foreigners, but I don't do it when I'm not talking to them. There'd be no way for us then to determine whether she really speaks black or not. I mean, you're saying that she might
Correct.
engage in code switching.
Correct.
But I mean, again, that goes to we don't know anything about her. So how does the Civil War play into what her philosophy would be? Because she could come from a white house in a rich neighborhood and be like that, or she could come from the fucking ghetto and have lived on food stamps all her life. We don't
Actually,
know.
we can solve this right now by looking up the mayor right now. Sorry for not thinking
No, it's
doing
fine, man.
this
Go ahead.
for I should have done this earlier because basically uh there there are internal struggles within certain groups
Well, actually, you know what? I want to ask you. I want to
within
ask you
the
this in
huh?
regards to code. I want to ask you this in regards to code switching. Um, wouldn't that just be internalized racism? I mean, wouldn't that? Could we just call it Tom talking, Uncle Tom talking, right? Because that's basically what it is, isn't it? You're afraid to be who you are, or you're putting on an act for another race. So basically,
Yes.
it's internalized racism. It's Uncle Tomming it. It's Uncle Tom talking. I'm coining that. That's patented, trademarked. Chat.
Yeah,
Don't fucking steal it.
we have all been influenced by the surrounding environments. So you could make that argument because because basically, due to the historical events, basically, black speech is not considered to be a prestigious dialect. So black people have been suppressed for speaking black, basically. So they have been forced to speak in a white manner. However, this is part of what I would make the argument that we are trying to fix. And in regards to the mayor of Baltimore, she is a daughter of a doctor and a member of and a politician, and and she
Wait,
also
she
went
she has a
to
medical degree? Goddamn.
yeah.
Why did she become a mayor? She could be making a killing as a fucking doctor.
No, her dad
Oh,
was
I'm sorry, I misheard you. Okay, I thought she had like a medical degree and then went into politics. I couldn't
okay.
figure
No,
that
no, no.
out.
Sorry. Her mom was a doctor. Her dad was uh, a politician. So she does come from a different world than other black people do.
So why did they vote her in? If it's a majority population that's black in Baltimore, why would they ever vote her into office if she's from, if she's an Uncle Tom, if she's from a different political world, a different kind of cultural world, and that doesn't make sense to me. If this is an issue, the
People
black
are.
community. Oh, go ahead.
Have you heard of the term false consciousness?
No, go ahead. Drop it on me.
Um,
Make me woke.
basically,
Tell me what it
it's
is.
a Marxist term, which makes the argument that people can often be deceived by appeals to their nation, to their race, etc., when they're still being screwed over. But 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 the bourgeoisie, which is the rich person, is able to use the identity aspect to mask um, other things which may have which may have a bad effect. So basically the black voters in Baltimore might have, I'm not sure, I am not someone who lives in Baltimore.
Neither am I.
They
Yeah.
might have voted for her primarily because she is black, or may have been persuaded to vote for her because she is black, but they were unaware of the different worldviews which she had in comparison to the average voter in Baltimore. And actually, there is a quote from Barack Obama exactly on that. Because he
Well,
made a
let
quote.
me ask. We'll get to Obama in a second. I just want to kind of keep pace. Two things, I guess. One, it kind of comes off like, I mean, it sounds like you have a really low opinion of black people. Well, you're talking about, well, they would have voted because essentially this kind of critical theory idea, this Marxist idea is what? That they're too stupid to pick up on, that she's going to sell them out, and that they code switch because they're ashamed of who they are, and that they make
empire now.
But I mean, look at what you're talking about. 13% of the population, so we're saying they do 50% of the crime, so criminal. People that are ashamed of their heritage, they code switch, so they're sellouts, and they're too fucking dumb to elect somebody that's going to do the best thing for them. I mean, that's not the view I hold of black people. I don't think that they're fucking useless tools that are too goddamn stupid to pull themselves out of a ditch. The other thing, wait, one other thing, one other quick thing. Do you think, just taking Baltimore as an example, well, you brought up this. What was the phrase that you used when you were explaining this?
False consciousness.
False consciousness. Do you think if more black people or if more of the population in Baltimore had been Marxist or communist, that they would have been more aware of this and then voted better?
Yes.
Do you think that the black community as a whole should be more Marxist or communist? Do you think that would be more beneficial to them so they could see these kind of things coming for them?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Go ahead with the Barack Obama thing. I said, I'm trying to keep pace with you.
All right. Basically, there's an Obama quote which basically says I was a community or organizer, blah blah blah. But when I became a senator, I felt my world started to diverge from the desires of my constituents, and I felt myself tied in more and more to the desires and to the wills of those who are MBAs, those who had banks, those who were of a different class level. So this is something which Obama himself has stated, which is that when you get to a certain position, or when you come from a certain class position, there is a disconnect from what your constituents wish. And furthermore, in regards to your claims that I say that black people are stupid, and that they can't dig themselves out of a ditch. No, my claim is that black people as a national group are basically stuck in a shit position in the American empire, the giant global spanning empire which oppresses black people, white people. Yes, that means that I believe that you can make an argument that white people in the U.S. are oppressed both in a class nature and arguably in a national nature, in which the white national identity may be suppressed by the nation the destroying processes of capitalism. And but the thing is, this happens to pretty much every ethnic group in every empire. When Poland was part of the Russian Empire, the the Polish the population of Poland was put in a similar subaltern position relative to
Wait, the
Orthodox
populate
Russians.
the
When
pop
Ireland
the
was
pop
in this position, it
wait,
was
wait, wait, wait. The population of Poland was put in a position. You've got a tiny bit of a stutter. Would you say Peter Piper picked a pack of pickled peppers for me?
Peter Piter picked the pepper. Sorry.
See, you died right at the end there. I'm sorry, I'm just fucking with you. When you talked about Obama talking about class, is that a communist argument? Is that a Marxist argument he was making? That seems to be a large part of the
Actually,
Marxist philosophy is a class-based argument.
I don't believe that Obama is a Marxist.
No, I
He's
didn't say he was. I
oh
said, is that an Marxist
yes
argument that he's making?
um
Or is that a Marxist statement that he's making? I'm sorry.
yes, it is a Marxist statement.
Okay. All right. And I know we're jumping around here a lot, but I don't want this stream to go like for 4 or 5 hours.
All right.
I think you said at the start of this you had several points you wanted to raise. We've gone through about three of them. What are some others that you'd like to kind of touch on?
Actually, crap. Soros, black crime. Oh, I believe those were all of my arguments. Do you have a counter argument now? Would you wish to make your response, or?
Well, yeah, my argument in regards to Black Lives Matters, and you summed it up. That was the tweet that I put out that kind of got your interest or that got your attention to come on.
Yes.
Um, you know, again, that sums up my general view of them. Now, when we're talking about people in leadership positions like D-Ray, we see that they're making a lot of fucking money doing what they do. Personally, myself, I always become a little bit wary of people that make a lot of fucking money leading a group of people to do stupid shit. And I think that you could make an argument that Black Lives Matters does stupid shit. When we're talking about the people that they hold up as martyrs, I said every martyr a thug.
Yes.
You look at the people that they brought up. We've got people like Corinne Gaines. Who was that? That was a woman that had a warrant for her arrest for failure to
Yes.
appear. Her boyfriend had a warrant for assault against her, which is bizarre that she'd be hanging out with him when he's got that hanging over his head. Police show up to the house. She's got a loaded gun. There are videos of her filming herself, loading up the shotgun. She's pointing it at cops and made the statement, according to the police. Again, that this part isn't caught on camera. That if they come in, they're gonna fucking die, and she's gonna shoot them as they're trying to, basically breach into the living room. Now she was held up as an example of somebody who is erroneously killed. This never should have happened. Now, to me, that seems fucking bizarre. This is a woman who had a warrant for her arrest that didn't go to court, so of course the police are going to come to your fucking house. When the police get there, what does she do? She grabs a fucking shotgun, barricades herself into the house, holds her kid in her arms, and points the gun at the cops. What is the reasonable expectation that the police are going to do in that situation? Spend 18 hours telling her that she's beautiful and that the world is fucking flowers and unicorn farts? They have to act. They have to do something. They can't just let somebody who's basically going to trial on a criminal charge set the fucking momentum. They can't let criminals, in this case she is, I mean, she's got this, maybe she would have been found innocent, but the point is she failed to appear. They can't let people that have committed criminal acts set the agenda for how police situations are de-escalated. I don't think the cops woke up in the morning and said, you know what, Tom? What's that, Bob? Let's go kill us a nigger. I don't think that's the conversation that they had that fucking morning. Not to mention this bitch, by the way, I particularly dislike her because she's a nutty motherfucker. I hate somebody that puts her kid in harm's way. I think that's fucking bullshit. Her plates on her cars, because this all relates to a traffic stop. And people act like, oh my God, this traffic stop, why was this such a big deal? This nutty bitch was a sovereign citizen. I don't know if you're familiar with what that is.
Yes, I am.
All right, she had her own fucking plates made up, slapped on the car, talking about, the Articles of Confederacy say that I'm not driving a car, I'm traveling, shit like that. So I have a feeling that the police have dealt with her ass quite a bit. They finally ticket her because they can't stand the shit anymore, and she fails to appear. And then they look and they see that there's a concurrent warrant out for her boyfriend for beating her ass. So, I mean, hell, they might not even have showed up just to serve the warrant on her. They might have thought, my God, maybe she's in physical danger if the guy she's living with has a charge over his head for beating the shit out of her. And that's one example. You've got somebody like Seville Smith. This is a guy whose sister went on television and told people, why are you burning down our neighborhoods? Go to the suburbs and burn down white people's houses. Burn down white people's businesses. Now, he had all this different fucking shit on him, right? The story when it first came out, people were saying, oh my God, why did the police kill him? It is an erroneous killing. Well, Seville Smith had a gun that was from a fucking robbery. The people talk like he had a concealed carry permit. That's great, but you can't concealed carry a fucking gun that you stole. You still stole the fucking gun. So the police pull him over, and he runs, and he's got the gun on him, and the fucking body cam shows that he has the gun on him, and that it looks like he's raising it. Again, you're a cop. You've got a shit fucking job, and you have to make a split decision. I have no idea what Seville Smith was going to do, but if he's drawing a fucking gun on me, I'm going to assume it's probably the worst possible outcome for that situation. And this guy had, he was on trial, or he was charged with witness intimidation. Those charges got dropped. I have no idea. I'm going to have to go with the DA. I guess there was nothing there, but there are recordings of him saying, you need to go talk to this guy and shut him the fuck up, which makes me think that's really bizarre that the DA let that go. You've got other people like, one of my favorite ones is the Dallas Sniper. Now, when you bring up this guy, what was his fucking name? I had it written. Micah Xavier.
Johnson.
Yeah, okay, there we go. Micah. So when you bring up Micah, he talked about a lot of the Black Power movements and stuff on social media. His fucking social media accounts got wiped. And, I don't know if that was because of a family member, if that was, Mark Zuckerberg being the faggot that he is and interfering with shit. Because I know that he's got his own fucking agendas. I'm not even saying that it lines up with Black Lives Matters. I'm just saying Zuckerberg's a fucking pussy and will wipe shit out to make it convenient for himself. But
can you repeat yourself? I didn't quite hear you.
Oh, I'm sorry. Did I cut out on you?
No. I dropped out.
Oh, okay. Anyway, I was talking about the Dallas Sniper. Yeah. There are archives, and I don't have them on me right now. I can link them later on Twitter if you want to take a look at them, where he is interacting, following, liking, and talking to Black Power movements, Black Lives Matters. I mean, he's tuned into this fucking shit.
Yes.
One of the interesting side notes to that is one of the main groups that he was following were the ones in Minnesota, who have also, by the way, had the most violent, or some of the more violent fucking protests. I mean, the most recent one that they had ended up crippling a cop. They dropped a fucking cinder block on his head from an overpass bridge, and they threw a fucking M80 into a line of police that exploded. You've got people.
The one with the Poland K attacking them.
No, I know which. I'm getting to that one actually.
Okay.
That would be, you're talking about Jamar Clark. Jamar Clark in Minnesota. Here's a guy. This is a beautiful one. Again, I'm listing these people off in the reaction to him because it's the same fucking thing that happens every time. Black guy gets shot by the cops. Everybody jumps on the hashtag. The fucking leaders of the movement make statements saying how innocent they were and they didn't do nothing. And then, a week to a month later, all this shit comes out about them, and they don't back down from that stance. And fuck, they even go on to potentially riot or protest about it. So you've got Jamar Clark. Here's a guy that actually tried to pull some shit on the police before. He stole a car, drove it 70 miles an hour into somebody else's fucking house. Now, he tried to claim that the police beat him. The thing he didn't know was the police had a fucking dash or a body cam. So there's video recorded of him not being beaten. So nothing ever happened with that. I mean, it was just bullshit story he made up to try to make the police look guilty of something they didn't do. Fast forward to his more recent event. Girlfriend gets beaten. He's at the fucking ambulance. They're heated. Cops show up. He resists arrest. He gets shot. Now the witnesses said, "Oh my God, he was handcuffed. He was thrown on the ground." They actually made it sound like he was fucking executed. He's handcuffed, thrown on the ground, face down. Cop puts his boot in between his shoulder blades and shoots him in the back of the head. What happens? Mark Dayton, the police force in Minnesota, take a look at the fucking film that's available, and you can clearly see that's not actually what fucking happened. And the video has been released. It was released after they did their inquiry. I think you can still find it on YouTube if you look, and I know I posted clips from a couple of the different sources up on Twitter. I'll try to find those later. But they had a protest for a fucking month in Minnesota over Jamar Clark. His brother goes out and makes a statement saying that he agrees with ISIS. The terrorist attacks are the way to go. That you need to get violent and you need to cause strife and let's fucking kill anybody. ISIS is good by me. That's what this protest is about. So they're spraying up graffiti everywhere. They're fucking breaking personal property. They're hucking bottles and rocks at cops. You had, I'm going to fuck this guy's name up, but he's a senator from Minnesota. His son was out there doing a little PR stunt. I don't think this guy's really connected to the movement. I think it was just, look at me, how fucking in tuned I am to shit. But again, this was over Jamar Clark. Now you brought up Poland K. A group of guys go down there to fuck around with people. They go down there to film, and they're confronted right off by people that say, who are you? Identify yourself. Again, I find this funny. If race is a social fucking construct, and you can't really judge somebody by the way they look, how the fuck are they going to be able to tell that they're white? You know what I mean? But anyway, they go up to them and they're like, you don't belong here. You need to identify yourself. We're uncomfortable around white people. They identified them as white people. They film a bunch of shit, pussy out, leave. Come back like 3 or 4 days later. I'm sure you've seen the videos. They're up all over the fucking internet. Come back 3 or 4 days later. I don't know if it's the same group of guys or a different fucking group of guys, but it's relatively starts off the same way. They get physical with them and push them. You can't be here. You need to take the fucking mask off. We need to know who you are. One of the guys is strapped, runs down the fucking street. He gets chased or pursued by a group of people, fires off, I think it was 8 shots, hits 5 people, gets arrested for gun charges and a couple other, and I think it was 4 arrests altogether. There was a 5th, but the guy was let go. But I mean, it's this fucking atmosphere of violence. Now, you could say, well, why would he go down there with a gun? Or he was instigating the situation. He's wearing a mask, nobody else is. Or this is a protest that they're having. Well, it's a fucking street paid for by the taxpayers. You can walk wherever the fuck you want to. I don't care if you have your fucking special jamboree over Jamar Clark. I'm going to walk right by you. Fuck you if you have a problem with that. Welcome to America. That's freedom. I can walk wherever the fuck I want to walk. I don't need to identify myself to you. You're not a fucking Scientologist asking me what my crime is. And it goes on and on and on. I mean, you've got more and more and more of this shit. It's always some fucking connection to crime. There's always some fucking gun involved. There's always some criminal record involved. And then they're held up as fucking martyrs. And then protests start. And what do they do when the protests start? You saw it in Baltimore. You saw it more recently with the shit that happened with Seville Smith. They go out and they burn down their local neighborhood. How does that make any fucking sense? Do you think the guy up the street from you is some fucking white millionaire? No. You're burning down the fucking Tires Plus and the gas station and the local shoe store, and you're fucking robbing the jewelry store. You're doing all this shit to local business owners in the same neighborhood as you. To black people just like you're black. You're looting their fucking store. You're burning their fucking property. You're flipping their car over. So I'm supposed to take you seriously when you say that, oh, we're being oppressed, the police are racially profiling us, white cops are out to kill us, when the fucking people you hold up as martyrs are thugs, and the fucking property you destroy is black people's shit. How does that make any sense?
Yes. Actually, I will first start with the gains person.
Yeah, go ahead.
Which was the sovereign citizen.
Yeah, Corin Gaines. Yep.
Yeah, Corin Gaines. I will say that Coring Games was not was not a passive victim, but that doesn't make her not a martyr. And when I say that, I mean I I mean that the historical the mythology which has developed, as which you have criticized, is that Corinne Gaines basically was a martyr who was attacked by the police, who was a passive victim. With this new information, the status of Corinne Gaines is not necessarily that of a passive victim, but arguably that of an active martyr, because as you mentioned, Corinne Gaines was actually involved in anti-police groups. She was actually apparently involved with their equivalent of Copwatch, which was a NGO which exists to watch over to watch police and to make sure that the police would are not abusing the population. So she was an active participant, but but the thing is, there are some discrepancies. For example, you mentioned how it is reported that Gaines used her toddler as basically as a human shield.
No, I
But
said that she held her toddler, and then I went on to further state that I think people that put their own kids in danger are
Oh.
pieces of shit. But no, you are right. People did initially report that she was using the child as an actual human shield.
Yeah, but was that ever proven? Because it actually because it turned out actually that the Baltimore Police Department actually shot the baby, because Tariq Nasheed posted a video of Tariq Nasheed posted a video showing Co- Corin's actual son, but it turned out actually that the police shot the kid, at least according to the actual kid. And we don't, unfortunately, we don't know if 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 she was an active participant in the actual shooting, because the police cut off the Facebook feed, because she basically turned on the Facebook feed so that other people would be able to listen to her to see to see, if anything sketchy would be going on, because there was another case of a cop watch guy who was in a similar situation, who basically who was in a sketchy situation with the police, but he turned on his camera on Facebook, and then he surrendered to the police. So when the guy surrendered to the police, it would be available on the camera, and the police couldn't get away with shooting him. So by your own admission, we don't know if Gaines actually actually used her son as an actual human shield.
Well,
And
here's what we wait. Here's what we do know. She did have a gun. The gun was loaded. She did have a warrant that she ducked out on. She did have a boyfriend who had a warrant for beating her in the same location. The police did show up at the house. The police did try to arrest her. She did, there's videos of her loading it up. There are videos of her making threats and telling her child, the police are going to kill us. The police are going to kill us. I have to do something about it. Whether or not, again, this is why I carefully chose my words, putting your child in danger.
Yeah.
That kid would be not, you said he got shot. He wouldn't have been shot if she had gone to court. She wouldn't, the kid wouldn't have been shot if she had allowed herself to be arrested. The kid wouldn't have been shot if she wasn't batshit crazy driving around with a fucking cardboard license plate that said, the Articles of Confederacy say that I can shit on your squad car and you have to applaud me.
Yeah.
She set that situation up. She put herself in that situation. She did. She put herself in that situation by driving around without a tag and licenses. That's what led to the fucking warrant in the first place.
How did she set the situation up
If
the
I go out,
the forces of the state though have to enforce the actual law? So the state is taking an active stance in enforcing those laws though.
do you play? Wait. Do you? No. Hold on, Warsey. Do you play a video game and then yell at the developer that, well, how is this my free will? You put these rules in and how the game is programmed. I mean, you live in a society that has laws. You're going to have to obey them, or you're going to have to start a revolution. She lives in a society that says when you're driving down the fucking street, you need to have a license, you need to have tags, you need to have a driver's license and insurance, because operating a vehicle that goes at excessive speeds put other people in danger. And it's only fair that you abide by the same rules other people's do. So we have some kind of regulation so other people aren't put at risk by your willful negligence. She chose, knowing that, to disregard it. She chose, knowing that she would face some kind of a legal penalty. You're saying, well, I mean, what's the argument?
State chose, yes, but the enforcers of the state also chose.
Well, what are they going to do? Let her go? Well, no. Okay, but what are they going to do? Just let her go? When should they have served the warrant? Is she free to go? Like, well, fuck it. She broke the law, but she's special.
Actually, in regards to hot pursuits, a lot of police departments have basically adopted the quote, if it's not a significant issue, leave it alone policy in regards to high speed chases, because they believe basically that engaging in a high speed pursuit or attempting to enforce every single edict of the state actually causes more of a problem than simply allowing, as you phrased it, minor criminal actions to get away. So yes, I would make the argument that the forces of the state could have simply ignored it.
Well, if the agents of the state ignore it, if there are laws that they're not going to enforce, then people will never obey those laws. So nobody's going to get a license, nobody's going to get insurance, nobody's going to get a plate or tags, nobody's going to take driver's license lessons. They're going to break every single fucking law because there are absolutely zero repercussions for it.
Actually, no.
Why would you obey a law that doesn't have any power over you?
People obey the laws not because of the negative punishment which may occur because you don't obey the law, but because people believe that the laws are a good thing to follow.
So she didn't believe that they were a good thing to follow.
There was a national study in Chicago during the 1980s, which actually pointed out that most people follow the laws not necessarily because of a fear of sanction, but because they believe that the law is a righteous thing. So I would question the mentality and the logic which says that you need the forces of the state to enforce these laws. Otherwise, they will not exist. Given that historically, at least in the United States and in the United Kingdom, there were not police forces did not exist until the 1800s or so, and the societies got along well without police forces.
Societies got along well in the 1800s without. Are you kidding me?
Societies with cities.
Okay. Well, let me ask you this. Wait. We're getting off topic. Let me bring it back here, because we're talking about. Okay, let's set aside the minor traffic. No. Let's set aside the traffic citation. Okay, and you're talking about they chose to enforce it. That's neglecting the fact that the person she's living with had a warrant out for beating her. Yeah. So if you're law enforcement and somebody doesn't show up to court, and then you look up their their record or whatever, and you see they live at a residence with somebody who beat them, would it not be reasonable to assume that, well, maybe we should go and fucking enforce the law because maybe she's in danger?
but you yourself know how questionable the domestic violence laws are, such as
Do you have reason to
the loose
believe she
model.
wasn't beaten?
Hmm?
Do you have reason to believe that he didn't beat her?
No, what I am saying is you made the assumption that because someone has a domestic violence charge that he actually beat her, but you yourself
So
said
wait, so
that
he
Corin
didn't do
Gaines
nothing.
but you said that Corin Gaines was a crazy bitch.
Oh, she was
So
nutty as
if, as you
fuck.
say, Corin Gaines is a crazy bitch, why she take her word that her boyfriend is beating her and that this isn't just some dramatic yandere bullshit?
Because that's what a court is there for. The police aren't the ones that get to decide whether they enforce a warrant for them. I mean, they're not the ones that are going to make the call that, well, personally, Tom, what is it, Bob? I think this guy didn't beat her because Corey Gaines is a crazy bitch.
Yes,
That's not how that works.
but they enforce the laws, and as a law enforcement arm, they do have a substantial amount of power and discretion in
So they
what
should be police
occurs.
officers and social workers. They should know everything about the person they're arresting. I mean, that's
Well,
putting a large onus
you
on somebody who
yourself
signed up for the
made
job,
that
right?
implication earlier, though.
What was the
You
implication that I made?
that 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 the police had to deal with Corinne Gaines, and that she was a crazy bitch, and
No,
that
that
they
was my
very,
observation
very
that
likely
she
knew
was a
of her
crazy.
history.
Yeah, that was my observation that she was a crazy bitch, and then more than likely they knew who she was. I didn't say the police officers had stated Corinne Gaines is a
Okay.
crazy bitch and we know who she is. I'm just
Okay.
saying, based on what I've seen of her and based on what I've read of her, I'm pretty sure that she was a fucking nutter, and that people probably were aware of how crazy she was.
Yes. Basically, that is something which you that yes, something that you could say is something which historians will probably have to decide in like 50 or 100 years. Kind of like how Joan of Arc currently is basically a national hero of France, but she may have been schizophrenic. So while Corinne
Do you
Gaines
think
is
Corinne
not
Gaines is going to be
exactly,
the American Joan of Arc? You've got to be fucking kidding me.
you never know. After
No, I'm pretty fairly certain this bitch is not going to be the Joan of Arc of America.
well, what would you say about Anders Breivik?
He's not even American.
No, but it's an analogy. He is a controversial person who who might have a different historical reaction like 50 or 100 years in the future.
So you're asking me what I think the reaction to Breivik is going to be 100 years
Yes,
from now?
in 50 to 100 years.
If I could tell you what was going to happen in 50 to 100 years, I'd be playing the fucking lottery, buddy.
Yes, true. But I asked you what you think. I didn't ask you for a hardcore proof of the future. 100 years from now, please summon forward the information from the future. I was asking your personal opinion.
My personal opinion of how Breivik is going to be viewed,
Yes.
he's going to be viewed as somebody who probably had an ideology that was gaining traction in Europe at the time, which is anti-immigrant and anti-leftist. And I have a feeling that they're going to still look at him like he was a fucking criminal because he
Oh,
went to an island and shot up a bunch of kids.
okay. Well, basically, my argument is basically that that Corin Gates, as well as a lot of other controversial figures, will probably have a different historical outlook, probably 50 or 100 years or 100 years from now. And I'm willing to make the statement that even people such as Dylan Roof or Anders Breivik might be looked upon differently.
Wait, did you say Dylan Roof?
Yes, even Dylan Roof.
What do you think his view is? My turn to ask you, Nostradamus. What do you think Dylan Roof is going to be looked at as in 100 years?
I do not know. He might be considered to be a generic terrorist. He might be considered to be the vanguard of the race war. We don't really know, but I am willing to make the claim that our discussions on how batshit Korean games are might be restricted to our perspective in history right now, because we are basically dealing with the immediate aftermath versus what people may look upon these struggles 20 or 30 years in the future.
You've got to, I mean, let's be realistic here. You have to be insane if you think that Corey Gaines, of all people, of anybody that you could choose, could even potentially be held up as some kind of exemplary example of fighting the system or being a Joan of Arc of America. That's just fucking nutty. Even Dylan Roof will not. You know, nobody's even going to know who they are. They're just going to be background noise.
Let me give you an example. The Boston Massacre. Basically, during the Boston Massacre, even the people who supported the independence from Britain said that the British soldiers were basically justified in, you know, shooting into the crowd because the crowd was throwing pots and pans at the British soldiers. Even a future founding father of the United States, which was John Adams, defended said British soldiers. It it doesn't matter much, but now people consider the Boston Massacre to be this horrible thing. So,
can you name me
what
one?
I'm saying
Can you name me
is-
one person killed in the Boston Massacre?
There were
No, without looking. Can you name a name of one person?
Christmas attacks.
Okay, and you think that say it again?
Christmas attacks.
Okay, you think Atox is going to have the same ring, or Corey Gaines is going to have the same ring? You don't see how that's insane. Come on, man. I know you know this is
As
insane.
I said,
I know you know this is insane.
But it is possible, though.
I don't know, man.
We
I mean,
are restricted by our positions in history, though. We don't exactly know what is going to happen in the future.
Well, then let's talk about the specious present. Then we're dealing with a group, like I said, that holds up martyrs that are basically criminals and that fucking pillages their own neighborhoods. And then I'm expected to treat them like they're reasonable individuals. They're not. They're fucking crazy.
Right.
They've got people at the they've got people at the top that are taking money. They are taking money to give speaking engagements and tours. They're connected to international financiers. They're living in homes funded by Open Society Institute, or whatever the fuck Soros calls it.
Yeah.
You've got people like Sean King, a white guy pretending to be black, but apparently now, you know, after our discussion about social constructs, he's black.
He assimilated into blackness.
Okay, he's assimilated into blackness.
He also claimed that his dad, who he barely knew, was black.
Well, Sean King has claimed a lot of things. Sean King claimed that the reason people hold guns is because they're like penises, which makes me think he polishes long guns every night. That guy loves cock. Okay, but
it's a very Freudian outlook. It's not a new outlook. It's a very Freudian outlook.
I think this guy's looking for cigars. But Sean King, you know, making statements after Milwaukee, making statements after Baltimore, basically almost giving the nod, saying that this is okay. I'm down with this. How am I supposed to look? You know, you're presenting the argument that cops are going after innocent people, but then the innocent people that you're holding up aren't innocent. And then you're saying, well, you know, protest is the voice of the unheard, but your protest of the unheard is only hurting other unheards.
Yes. Actually, if we talk about Milwaukee, basically, as you mentioned, though, the sister of the guy who was shot did say, "Don't burn down their neighborhood, burn down the suburbs." So,
and nobody listened to her.
Yeah. So, but the thing is, how do we know that for example the gas station or the other stores burned down were black owned, though?
How do we know they're white owned? I'm taking an educated guess, given the geography and the neighborhood, that they would be black owned, or at least employ majority black people.
Basically, gas stations tend to be owned by Indians or Arabs who in the United States are classified as white. Like Arabs were basically classified as white since the day that the first.
So how does burning down a Saudi shit fix your neighborhood when you're angry at white cops?
No. You said that they were burning down their neighborhood and burning
Oh,
down.
okay, yeah, and now I'm saying let's go with what you're saying.
Their
How does them burning down a Saudi's gas station fix white police violence against black people?
Have you heard of the term the liberatory power of violence?
The liberatory power of violence.
Yes,
That sounds like something by somebody who would
Frantz
be a
Fanon.
Marxist. Yeah, I know who
He
he
makes the
is.
argument
He died in the
basically
60s.
that,
Yeah, I know who he
that,
is.
that even non-directed violence has a set positive because it basically it helps to remove
Wait. If violence has a set positive, right? If that's what he's proposing,
the
then
violence of the oppressed. I like to point out.
of violence of the oppressed, they have to be oppressed then. Well, wait a minute. Since all people can be black and all those cops who are technically, white are now black, they'd be oppressed, right? So them committing acts of violence against black people is really a net positive.
But you earlier talked about how about about how they could be white as well, and 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 that they have taken the social role of being white, and that they have accepted the privileges of whiteness.
Well, Seville Smith was shot by a black cop. So, right? And black people are oppressed in America. So, technically, him shooting that guy was a net positive.
How?
You just said violence of the what was it? What was the quote exactly from?
The violence of the oppressed. Yes.
Violence of the oppressed has a net positive, right?
But the violence of the oppressed should not be focused on internecine violence, though, because
Was that his full quote? Did he put the caveat in there?
Talks about talks about using that violence not against the people who are oppressing you, but against those who are causing the set problems. And I would like to point out that a lot of those gas stations tend to extort people in terms of
those sneaky fucking Arabs. I said those sneaky fucking Arabs robbing people. That's a racist view. How do you know they're not the most honest people on earth?
I don't know. It's actually funny. I knew a Palestinian guy. He flat out told me this. He flat out said he flat out told me Arabs will basically fuck you over, and I'm like, okay. I didn't exactly ask for this, but thank you for telling me this information. This is what he told me himself. So I'm not saying this. This is what the Palestinian guy told me. And
well,
I'm like,
the Palestinian guy might have reasons for not liking a Saudi. I'm just saying.
Yeah, that's what he told me, and I'm like, you know what? All right, fine. Well, I will take your information because you actually run a goddamn gas station, which is what he told me.
Let me ask you a question. What do you think of, and this is off topic, but I'll bring it back on topic. What do you think of a child that throws a tantrum in a store?
It's a bit like...
No, just a child. No, I'm saying if you were a parent and your child starts pissing themselves and kicking their feet and screaming, fuck you, are you going to encourage that behavior or are you going to react to the behavior?
Try to constrain it or try to channel said behavior in a different way, because
now wouldn't your parental that's fair enough, but wouldn't your parental authority be oppression to him? And wouldn't his tantruming, the violence, be a reaction to you? It's a net positive. So children tantruming in stores and acting like obnoxious little cunts, according to this Marxist philosopher, or however he described themselves, is really a net positive for society. We should have kids throwing tantrums in toy stores and pissing themselves and yelling loudly and being little cunts, and parents should applaud them.
But is there a historical fact of children being oppressed by their
parents? Are you kidding me?
Do you abused over generations though?
Yes, there is. Are you kidding me? You know, the idea of childhood is a modern American invention. I mean, we put kids to work. Oh, Billy, your little hands will fit inside that giant fucking widget. Yeah. Hey, Susie, crawl in that gear. I don't give a shit if you've got black lung. You know, daddy needs his alcohol. You know, Yeah, this valley isn't so green anymore, you little cunt. Get into the fucking coal mine.
Yes, I am aware of that.
And I'm sure those kids didn't willingly want to go to work. That parental authority was used on them.
Apparently, actually, according to George Orwell, he actually made an argument against that. Basically, the argument of Orwell basically is that it is only people of a certain class level who are obsessed on saying that child labor is bad and that children should be put into schools. So Orwell pointed out basically the average 12-year-old or 16-year-old young man didn't want to be stuck in a crowded fidgety place where
I'm not even talking about 16-year-olds. I'm talking about preteens. We're talking about 7 and 8-year-olds being sent off to the fucking factory.
True.
And there's nobody on earth, Orwell included, that's going to convince me that it is a more positive outcome for a child to work in a fucking coal mine than to go to kindergarten. That's insanity. And if Orwell is a proponent of that, then he's fucking insane.
Okay. I don't believe that Orwell meant like 7 or 8-year-olds, but I do acknowledge the fact that 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 childhood is a creation of modernity. However, I would not say that that children were oppressed in the same manner that ethnic groups were oppressed historically, especially given.
How would child labor be different than a concept like indentured servitude when you're looking at Europe and its specific application to certain ethnic groups? I'm not even talking about American slavery, the Arab slave trade. I'm just talking about indentured servitude. The child obviously isn't, and again, I do not think you will find an 8-year-old that says, yes, I want to work in the coal mine.
Yeah,
That's parental authority being exercised. And back to the tantruming thing, Orwell may have meant teenagers, but we're not talking about 16-year-olds kicking their feet in the aisle saying, I want that Pokemon. We're talking about 7 and 8-year-olds.
Yes.
So, I mean, by this original, what was his name again? I want to make sure I get it right. The one who's
Frantz Fanon.
Frantz Fanon. By Frantz Fanon's, outlook, if a child sees that authority figure is oppressive and them tantruming, that's a net positive for society. That's a good thing. And do you don't think that would be?
Fanon was talking about.
I know what he specifically. I know what he specifically meant, but I'm using his same logic in a different instance to show that there maybe are some issues with his logic.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, do you like tantruming kids? And well, yeah, but do you like tantruming children in stores? Because I find them to be fucking cunts.
Well, someone phrased it as they could stab me and I would still be their friend. So apparently, it takes a lot for me to be antagonized. So
wait, somebody could stab you and you would still be their friend? Are you a fucking?
Someone told me this literally, and I'm like, okay.
Are they a fucking cuck? What? So they're gonna let themselves get stabbed and be okay with that?
No. Someone told me they could stab me and I would apparently still be their friend. And I'm like, okay, and I laughed. And
you may be the first black cuck I've ever met if that's true. Is that true? Would you take a stabbing and be okay with it?
I don't know. I haven't been stabbed yet. I don't want to find this out, but.
Well, I haven't been stabbed. I haven't been stabbed either. But if somebody stabs me, I'm not going to be their fucking best friend afterwards.
Surprise. Okay.
Okay. Well, yeah. This has kind of gone on. We've been going for like 2.
Oh yeah.
2 hours. I'm going to let you. Let's do this. Yeah, 2.5 hours. I'll let you have the first word. I'm going to let you have the last word, and then that's the end of our discussion. So kind of what we talked about. I'm going to let you close us out with what you think of our discussion and the subject matter in general, and we'll leave it there. You'll have the last word on this.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Mitakor. Basically, I have attempted to elaborate to the best of my ability, which I know isn't perfect, but it's just an online debate. The internet is serious business. Blah blah blah. Which was basically making the argument that one, just because Soros, who is an admittedly controversial person, is funding Black Lives Matter, is funding him, is funding the BLM group, I should say, doesn't mean that the historical and social strife which created Black Lives Matter would not exist. At the very worst, you can make the argument that 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 Soros is trying to use Black Lives Matter basically for liberal ends, which is that Soros is trying to support Black Lives Matter, perhaps to support the Clintons or to provide a relatively safe political grouping or political outlook. Because if Black Lives Matter did not exist, there would be groups such as the new Black Panther Party and various other small Black nationalist groups, such as such as the Huey P. Newton Gun Club, which would have taken in the vacuum provided um, by the absence of Black Lives Matter. So basically, BLM, if you want to use the historical civil rights analogy, is attempting to be Martin Luther King's civil rights group, as opposed to Malcolm X or the Black Panthers or any other groups. So trying to suppress Black Lives Matter probably is not going to go too well, because the COINTELPRO in the 1960s basically created a years of lead type situation in the early 1970s, where you had communists and black nationalists, quote unquote terrorist groups, engaging in urban struggle. Second, a good portion of the violence and the struggles which have been occurring, which have been attributed to Black Lives Matter, are often by people who are not Black Lives Matter, people who didn't even use the Black Lives Matter chant when engaging in said political violence. While I will not condone said political violence, I am not going to condemn said political violence either. However, the fact is that at least some situations, such as the rioting in Baltimore, as well as the rioting in Milwaukee, might not be the result of Black Lives Matter, especially given Black Lives Matter has worked with other groups such as the Huey P. Newton Gun Club, which is a fact. Black Lives Matter does not exist in a vacuum. There are other political groups which Black Lives Matter are involved with in some way or another. And the last statement is basically that Black Lives Matter has basically taken the position where they are deconstructing the politics of respectability, i.e., defending controversial people such as Corinne Gaines has been taken about because people are basically tired of the idea that people have to be perfect angels, that they can't do absolutely anything wrong. The idea that someone should not have any sort of blemish in reaction to the state. So due to this, people are choosing people who you can make an argument are questionable people. However, I would make the claim that we are all basically products of our social, cultural, class, gender, etc., context, and that we are not exactly sure as to how historians 20, 30, or 100 years will look upon these these events. However, the statements of me should not be taken necessarily as the metaphorical word of God. And I'm very sure that I pissed off and baited the entire like chat. So I would like to point out that I went to DashCon and that I went to the FurryCon, which got gassed.
Okay.
Thank you, everyone.
Fantastic.
And good night.
Have a good one. Okay, let's close that out. All right. Well, I hope you had a entertaining evening, chat. That was our BLM our pro BLM person coming on to discuss the issues. Oh, sorry, excuse me. Discuss the issues. We covered a lot of things. George Soros being a fake Jew, Arabs being greedy, anybody can be black. Tom talking. I think it's been educational for everybody. I know it went on a little bit long here at the end, but that's what you get. I'm just reading through chat right now before I close this out. Because of the delay, you think I left. No, I'm still actually fucking here. I am still here talking to you. But yeah, it's been 2.5 hours. I think I'm going to call it right here. Hope you guys enjoyed the Blackocast. It still is a open offer to anybody that wants to come on and argue for BLM. I welcome all fucking challengers. I welcome all fucking challengers on this subject matter. All right, chat. You have a good one. You take it easy, and remember, you're all black. We're all black now. People have to do what we say because we're oppressed. When you go to a store, beat somebody. That's just a net positive for society. And make sure to call everybody nigga, because you don't want to be doing that Tom talking shit. You sellout fuck.